Hello and welcome to We Will Talk About It, the Supernatural Rewatch podcast where we watch one episode every week, spoiler free. I'm Megan,
I'm Kat.
and this week we are talking about Season 1, Episode 20, Dead Man's Blood.
I will say, plot twist. I remember this episode.
That is a plot twist.
That is a plot twist. That's why I'm like, I'm actually, one, you'll have to have a drink anyway because I said plot twist. But I remember this episode because it's like a pinnacle episode. Well, obviously, it's a pinnacle episode, obviously, because we're getting close to the end of season 1.
We are.
But it's also one of those episodes I remembered. And also it's the first time we are introduced to the, I guess, monster of the week this time.
So this episode was written by Catherine Humphreys and John Shaban. John Shaban has written quite a few episodes.
Yep.
He was an X-Files writer, which I think always shows out in his episodes.
Oh, yes.
Kind of
fun, yeah.
the vibes, the X-Files kind of vibes. And it was directed by Tony Warmby, I want to say. But yeah, we're getting almost to the end of the season.
Yep.
We're definitely starting to ramp up, which is really fun.
Definitely on the season arc.
Yes. And I think we'll just talk about it up front, which is that this is our first introduction to vampires.
Hence why I was trying to be vague, but I was like, well,
I think because this episode aired in 2006. We're in 2006 now in the context of the show. So, which I guess means I was watching this in 2007. Maybe, I can't remember. So this aired 2006. And I guess Angel had ended maybe 2 years before. Buffy had ended 3 years before that. So Eric Kripke, our boy,
my bestie,
he didn't want to put vampires in this show because he was like, it's so close. Buffy and Angel were like pinnacle shows, like so the zeitgeist, so important culturally. They're like, anything we do with vampires is going to be repetitive. This was before Twilight, so there wasn't any alternatives to vampire lore out at the time. We'll get there eventually and talk about the validity of Twilight, but like for now we'll just leave it at like there wasn't anything else out there. Buffy had said this
to reference it. And also when you think vampires, you either think at this time would have been Buffy / Angel or, you know, Nosferatu kind of style.
Or even just going back to Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, Interview. Oh,
yeah.
Love that movie.
Love that movie.
Love that movie. Sidetrack. Love that movie. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely do yourself a favor and go see.
I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix or Stan in Australia, obviously.
Maybe. I
have recently watched it. And when I say recently, I have watched it in 2021 because it's a great movie.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they didn't want to do it because Buffy had set the standard.
Yeah.
Buffy was the references everyone was going to make.
And the bar was very high.
Buffy was this incredible show that had broken so many barriers and done so much work and is still talked about today. So I don't really know what made them change their mind about vampires. I don't know if someone just pitched a way to twist it.
Yeah.
And they do sort of do that in the fact that, I guess, spoiler alert, I guess we're just diving into it today.
Yeah, we're just diving into it.
John comes back, surprise. We'll talk about it when we get there, but he's saying like a lot of the lore is kind of fake. He's like they're not scared of crosses. They don't really care about holy water. Like they're not afraid of the sun. Like
the sun, they generally hibernate, but it doesn't turn them into dust like pop culture or like lore.
And so they really tried to make it different. They obviously tried to do different things physically with the special effects. Like it's not like Buffy where you kind of get this kind of like ugly transformation up top and then you get just the 2 fangs. They'd made it so that it was like a whole different set of teeth.
Like sharks, like teeth, like they have like rows of teeth, but they retract, and also when they feed, they shed teeth, which made me go but yeah, when they fed, and I like the way that they set up how they're called, like they refer to them as nests, and that's where they're in groups of vampires and they're called a nest. And again, we're going to talk about it, but I do like, having recently watched Buffy for the first time. I know people
don't come for her because
please don't come for me, internet. Please. I made a tiny huge mistake, and I'm very grateful I watched it because it was great.
Yes.
I watched it last year and I told you about it.
Yes.
I like how they have definitely gone, Buffy, great, love you, Buffy. You know, mad props. But they've kept that wall up to be like, this is supernatural vampire versus Buffy vampire, and I like when shows do this, when they don't just carbon copy.
Yeah, and I think that was something that was really important to them, and clearly the fact that they originally were like, we're just not going to do vampires. This is a world where vampires don't exist.
And potentially some, you know, Gary's friend who took his job because Gary, the shitty assistant, may have gone, look, hey, vampires can be done. Maybe we can twist it.
Yeah, or even, one of the writers who pitched this episode might have suggested that they had, they'd given some thought about how to include vampires in a way that makes a lot more sense. So I don't really know the story. The information I have doesn't really explain why they changed their mind. Yeah. But it's very clear that they worked quite hard to make it that it was its own universe.
Own unique vampire lore.
Yeah. And so I think that that's really, really cool and really interesting because I think they don't really reference it in this episode, but this world in Hell House, so this world that Supernatural lives in is a world in which Buffy is a television show.
Yeah.
Because they say, what would Buffy do? Like, that's their little, like, how
little,
would we handle this? Like what would WWBD instead of WWJD, which is what would Jesus do, is what would Buffy do? Yeah. So this is a world in which Buffy exists. So that's also really interesting that they've really tried to make it quote unquote real versus the Buffy version that exists in this world. So
exactly, like it's I just like the way they've written this episode for many reasons is really good, and it's one of those episodes where I'm like, you can tell that obviously by now they've probably had their season, like they've been extended. They're really starting to pave foundations of we're probably going to see this particular type of monster of the week again.
Yeah.
And I like that they're
setting lore up, which is always fun.
It's always good. It's good setting like their own lore up to pave.
Yeah. So we open on a bar. We have a sort of old man who's sort of scribbling in his journal and drinking whiskey, and just he's kind of that weird old guy at the bar that's like kind of harmless, but draws
clearly
attention to himself
potentially.
And one of the other patrons sort of calls a waitress over, and it was like, I thought they caught the Unabomber. I love a joke.
Oh yeah.
I love a serial killer joke. I don't know if Ted Kaczynski technically counts as a serial killer.
No.
Then a group of people enter, and this catches the eye of this mystery fellow, this sort of weird outsider. He knows something's up with these characters.
Oh, we do actually find his name. We do find out his name because when I was going to say bar wench, which is very look, the lady who is the publican.
I think we can say bar wench.
We can say all right.
I think that's acceptable. Yeah.
Okay. When she's speaking to said patron, she's like, "Oh, Mr. Elkins, he's fine. He keeps to himself. He's honestly, he's a great customer because he buys lots of whiskey, essentially."
Yeah.
And yeah, I do like when these people do come in. They've got some chewed on them.
Yes.
It's very vibey of chewed.
Yeah. So what I was actually thinking about, although obviously they did want to put their own twist on vampires and all of that sort of thing. The sort of main girl vampire who we find out later is called Kate. And by the way, that's who comes into this bar. We're going to be a little over the shop because we've sort of already given the reveal.
Yeah,
but she was giving me strong underworld Kate Beckinsale vibes.
Oh, yeah.
This like leather pants and this like laced up leather shirt with like only to like the top of her ribs, so her whole navel is showing. I was just like, I love this outfit. I'm a little obsessed. Like,
the pencil thin eyebrows of the 2000s. I was getting a mix of craft.
Yes.
I was getting some craft vibes, but with the outfits of her, she was giving me some Coyote Ugly.
Yes.
Some vibes. Oh, I just throw
we'll talk about Cowboy Vampires later.
Oh, we will.
So Daniel Elkins, he makes an escape. He sort of sneaks out of the bar because he obviously recognizes this group of people.
And what they're about.
Which is that they're vampires. He goes back to his cabin, and it is all very like Unabomber, middle of nowhere cabin. And
very dark and dingy.
And so he's running inside, and he gets out a gun, a Colt.
But to get to the gun, he goes through a very elaborate kind of, security system. Like fake doors, fake thing, and ta-da, this like Hardy, what you would expect in a jeweler, like a fancy jeweler. Like that's what I expect in like Tiffany's.
I thought you were going to say Hardy Boys, and I was like, that's a surprise reference from you.
I mean, also I only know the Hardy Boys because of, Ryan and Shane who do from the Bun Network, like the BuzzFeed Unsolved. So yeah, thank you Ryan and Shane.
Giving you a reference. So this group of people that he saw in the bar that he was obviously very squirrely about and made him leave, they come and attack him, and before he can finish loading this gun,
very old gun,
they attack him, and ultimately it's implied that they kill him.
Yeah.
We then cut to Sam and Dean. They're in just a diner somewhere. They're trying to find a case, you know. They're sort of continuing on with a little bit of what's happening for these last few episodes, which is like, we chose to not follow Dad. That means that now we are focusing on work.
Yeah.
You know.
That he can't focus on.
Yeah. Dean is sort of teasing Sam, suggesting they go back to New York, that maybe he goes back and sees Sarah.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, no, now is not the time for that. I'm not ready to keep going with that. Like, and as I think I revealed in the last episode, it does go nowhere. There is no burgeoning romance between those two. So
there's no love letters that are exchanged via the post or emails to Law Boy.
Yes, exactly. It is the end of their love story. But Sam is reading the newspaper and he's reading about kind of mysterious deaths, and he reads about the death of Daniel Elkins, and Dean's like, I know that name. I know that name from Dad's journal.
Because Sam's also looking through the journal as well. The journal's open.
So they're like, okay, maybe it's the same Elkins. Let's go have a look into this. That's kind of interesting. Like, it seems like it could be the same person.
Yeah, and because it was like D. Elkin in the journal, he's like, that's a pretty... It's not like a Smith, which is what I am, which is very generic. He's like, that seems... And it's the same area code where this particular Elkins has died as well, so let's just go check it out.
Yeah, and so they go to this cabin. They're looking around. It's, it's clearly been ransacked. They find sort of a lot of blood where he was killed, and they actually notice something on the floor. So they notice a couple of things on the floor. They notice the empty Colt kind of box
holder thing. We're very descriptive because we don't understand guns.
Yeah.
Well, mainly me, because I still think fire guns are real.
Yes.
But yeah, the lockbox, you would say.
Like the storage container. God, we're terrible at explaining. So they notice this, and Dean kind of is like, and then they also notice something on the ground, and Dean does a like pencil rubbing of it because it looks like it's been kind of like carved into the wood, and it is the location and combination for a lockbox
or a PO boxy kind of scenario.
Yeah, like a mailbox, and they're like, that's what Dad does.
Yeah, this seems very on brand for hunters.
Yeah, and specifically sort of related to how Dad works, which is to do like a mail drop, and that's how you go and find information. So they go to the post office, and they find a letter that's actually addressed to J.W.
Yeah, and I
wonder
who could that be?
Yeah.
It's not plot twist, not Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, that would be quite a plot twist.
No, that would take a real hard left turn.
And so they're sitting in the car trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out whether to open the letter. And then there's a knock at the window, and it is revealed to be John. And I really like this reveal because it's really straightforward. It's really quick. It's not a big build up. It's just he's there.
Yeah.
Kat, would you like to talk about being surprised?
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Anyone who has worked with me knows me. Just around me, I'm a jumpy person. I'm a jumpy kitty cat. I do not like element of surprise. Like if your partner walked in behind me, even if I heard the door, would not put two and two together, and he could be like, "Hi, Kat," and I would go through your window. Yeah, because I jump easy.
For context, when we used to work together, Kat and I kind of shared a little like pod. But if I needed to talk to her, I would still turn around. I wouldn't just go over to her desk. I would turn around and go, Kat, and like tap on the desk so that she could come out of wherever she goes.
Yep.
When she's working, so she would know we wanted to talk to her, because otherwise she would literally fall off her chair, which I'm not saying isn't the funniest thing that's happened to me ever, but it was one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me.
I do remember that day, and I definitely screamed, and I definitely startled half an office because they thought I was being murdered. Yeah,
absolutely. So this would have killed Kat. Like just having like this intense situation where you've just been in this cabin where clearly someone's being attacked, and they found this letter that's almost completely 100% for their dad, who they don't really know where he is.
Yep.
And then to have the dad appear, like Kat would have just
knocking on the window.
Her heart would have just stopped.
Oh look, I would be an opossum.
Yes.
Goodbye. See you later. I don't. Yeah, that's just that's a lot of nope. That's a lot of noping for Kat. And I would have screamed, and I would be very irrationally angry.
Yes.
Like, ah! Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
like that, even though I'd be happy to see said father, but it'd be
Yeah.
like, no, fuck you, you did this to me. Yeah.
So they obviously give John the letter. He reads the letter,
Yeah.
and he sort of interrogates the boys a bit, like, do you know,
What this is.
like, did you see a gun? Did you see anything that, like, it looked like an old Colt?
He also says he had it all this time.
Yeah.
And the boys are like, had what all the time?
Yeah. What
is it?
So Dean mentions that he saw the empty box. He
Yeah,
it looked
Colt.
like it was for an older rifle, like an
Yeah.
older handgun.
Yep.
I guess we're talking about the Colt, which we kind of have, which we're about to explain what the Colt is, which we have context for. More generally speaking, though, and this is maybe a little more common in Australia than maybe America, and maybe other places, we don't have a ton of context for guns. So if we're using wrong terminology,
please don't roast us one.
we just don't know how. We're just not around guns.
For
kind
me,
of ever.
a pistol is like all small guns, and I know that's not right.
Yeah, I
Like,
I nearly went to say rifle, and I was like, that's 100% incorrect.
There's 100. Like, I know that one. It's like,
Yeah,
I group small guns into pistols and bigger guns into rifles, and
Yeah.
I know that's not correct.
So apologies if we use wrong terminology.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Genuinely don't know what we're talking about. But yes, he reveals that Samuel Colt, who I guess invented the Colt rifle, in the 1800s, he made this rifle. Oh my God, do I keep saying rifle?
Yes.
Yes. So Samuel Colt made this gun in the 1800s. He was the inventor, I guess, of the Colt gun. And the story, and he made it for a hunter. And the story is that this gun can kill
anything supernatural, and he only has he only made X amount of bullets. I think it was like 13 bullets. I think it was.
Yeah, which is obviously a lucky number in kind of occult circles.
Yes.
So I think there was 7 bullets left in the Colt. And it's something that is implied we don't sort of get the full story of John and Daniel and what happened.
Yeah.
The implication that we sort of get throughout this episode is that maybe Daniel was a bit of a like mentor for John.
Yeah, teacher. There's a lot of similarities with what the boys picked up at the beginning when they were going through the house. But yeah, there's not much of the backstory. We don't know.
No, and they had a falling out over something which was never fully explained.
Nope. We're not here for the explanation.
But I definitely got the implication that John was obviously pursuing the Colt as a way to kill the demon that killed their mother.
Yep.
And maybe Daniel had the Colt and maybe he didn't want, I don't know. Like we don't get enough of the backstory, but they had a falling out over something. And yeah, it turns out that Daniel did in fact have the Colt all along.
He had it, and he was very mad. Like it made John very mad that he all along had this. And but yeah, the implication is there that potentially Daniel may have lied to John about having like it's gone. You're never gonna find it.
Yeah,
leave it be.
Yeah,
potentially to protect John from whatever powers or whatever this thing is that they're hunting, which turns out to be a demon. So
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we don't get a full explanation. It's just a lot of implication. So you can read into it as much as you like, which obviously is Kat's personal preference.
That is my MO.
But you know, someone must have taken the Colt. This must have been the thing that attacked them. And it's at this point that John reveals that it was vampires.
And I love that both of them are like, they don't exist.
Yeah.
It's so great.
But I love that idea that they're like, no, vampires in this world aren't real.
And they've been extinct.
But not even that they don't exist. And so John reveals they do exist, but they've been almost wiped out, mostly by people like Daniel. So Daniel specifically hunted vampires.
Yeah.
And I kind of love when we start to get a little bit more of the lore of this world, a little bit more of hunters, like the idea that there's a hunter out there who's got a specific target.
Specialized.
Yeah, and they go after vampires, and there's not many vampires left.
Yep.
This is where we kind of learn that a lot of the lore is incorrect, at least in this world, that they aren't sensitive to light. They don't cry at holy water or at crosses, and in fact...
stakes through the heart don't work.
The Kate, the main vampire, she's actually wearing a cross for most of the episode, which I think is really cool, like very, very intentional in the way that they did that to her. But that they still don't like light. They prefer to hunt at night. They're pack animals, as it were.
Yeah, their senses are heightened more at night, blah, 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 blah. And also that to kill them, you need to chop off their heads.
Yeah.
Which
is kind of part of vampire lore more broadly. And obviously that was the specifics that they decided to get into for how to kill vampires in this world.
I like that they didn't go with the stake, because I would have been like, well, that's
Yeah, and I think that that's too much of a reference to
To Buffy.
Buffy,
Oh,
and so I
yeah.
think that that's absolutely why they were like, okay, what else in lore
Can
do
we
we
do?
have?
Yeah.
Obviously, I did not do much research on vampires for this episode the way that I
'Cause
did for Wendigos, or Bloody Mary
yeah,
or
we
whatever.
don't need to. A vampire. It's probably like if you go Supernatural, you
Yeah.
go like not Supernatural the TV show, but just Supernatural in general.
Yeah.
You go, you lump. It's the main four. You go zombies.
Mm-hmm.
You go Dracula / vampire.
Mm-hmm.
You go mummy. You go
Mm-hmm.
ghost.
I would have said werewolves over a mummy. So I feel like mummy is like,
I suppose I suppose werewolves actually
in terms of like,
yeah. But they're
Yeah.
like the main. They're the costumes. They're the if you want to add sometimes like the whole vow situation. It's like maybe sometimes why you add on a Frankenstein.
Yeah. But I guess it is just worth noting that, of course, Lore, the podcast, have a ton of episodes that talk about vampires, talk about
Yep.
the history of vampires, and talk about historically where you might find vampires.
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
rituals
as always and forever,
Always.
go listen to Aaron Mahnke.
Please do.
Support and love him because he is a sweet baby angle.
Also, his voice is soothing.
His voice is so soothing.
Not like it. Like what I can say, not like mine, but his definitely will put you to sleep in a good way. He'll definitely bring down the heartbeat.
Yes, absolutely. They sort of talk all about kind of the vampires and what the lore is, and then that's what they're hunting, and that they're going to hunt it together.
Mm-hmm.
We then cut to a couple in a car having some of the worst banter that I've actually... Like, she says, I didn't note it down, but she's like, did you lose the bet? And he's like, what? He's like, the person that made you wear that shirt. I'm like, this banter is terrible.
I think because it was so terrible, I remember the couple in the car, and they're
Mm-hmm.
driving down the road, and obviously they're always driving down the road with some bush or forest, and yeah, obviously some things gonna go down because it's at night. I think because it was so terrible, I was just like, nope, don't remember this ever happening because it was horrible banter.
It was truly terrible banter. Also, I just want to quickly roll back. This is specifically what they say about the creation of the cult, and I think it's worth reading because it is very
it's very tailored.
It's very it's fun. So back in 1835, when Halley's Comet was actually Halley's Comet. Fun fact, guys. Was overhead the same night those men died at the Alamo. They say Samuel Colt made a gun, a special gun. He made it for a hunter, a man like us, only on horseback. Story goes he made 13 bullets, and this hunter used the gun a half dozen times before he disappeared, the gun along with him. And somehow Daniel got his hands on it. They say this gun can kill anything.
It's very good. It also reminds me of the story of the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, a little.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Inside of Harry Potter world because it's such a cool little snip. Like it's like a little. I don't know. It's like a little morsel of delicious. Like, oh, that's cool. I want to know more about it. And you like, if this was real, you'd be like, I want to learn about this. I need to go research because I would 100% research this because it sounds like some zest. I want to read the zest.
But this couple with no chemistry, negative chemistry, I would say.
Look, we were, we should do like a poll, like worst chemistry, this couple or Dean and the chick who I can't remember
Cassie.
from. Huh?
Cassie
from Route 66.
666.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, these had worse chemistry. This was negative chemistry.
These are extras who are just like, just pretend you're a couple. And it's really obvious.
Rough.
Yeah, it's rough.
But they they almost run over a vampire who's
laying on the road.
He's laying on the road, and obviously when the boy gets out, the girl's calling 911, they get attacked, and that's kind of how they hunt. That's how they get, because the bloodlust, the blood sucking, all of that stuff about vampires is true.
Yeah.
And I do like that they kind of stuck with that, like keep some of the practical stuff.
Well, it makes sense. How else do they feed, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's too well known,
And also in this, they also make it very clear that they can drink alcohol. They can do those things. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't, make them loopy. It doesn't kill them.
Yeah,
they can do things like that, and it's just
to
survive. They just do the blood thing.
Yeah. And we now cut back. They're in a motel. Sam and Dean are kind of passed out on the bed, still fully dressed, and John is listening to a police dispatch, and here's the 911 call for the girl that was attacked, and he gets them up and gets them kind of going to go hunt this vampire. they're obviously in the Impala. John's in his truck.
I like how at this point he's really got them boxes really twisted.
Yeah, I've got Sam is kind of petulant, but also he has a point.
Oh yeah, his man is like, why? Like we get to the real crux of like their relationship, and we're definitely going to the point of where they left off before all this happened.
Yeah,
which is, why are we always following Dad? Why do we have to, like, when he says jump, we just automatically, Dean, you always say how high, like, no, what are we doing? Like, this is not fair for us. Like, he can just bark orders and we just are just meant to take it. No. Cuts off the car. Cuts off Dad's car.
Yeah, and so they're following, and John is like, next turn we're going to turn right, we're going to turn left, whatever.
Yeah.
And Sam is like, oh, okay, well, like, why? And they're obviously talking over walkie-talkies.
Yep.
And John's like, well, just do it. And
Yeah.
Sam's like, races ahead, blocks off John's car, and they get out, and they start to get into it. And Dean, all along, ever since John's turned up, has been like, please don't start this again. And, you can definitely empathize with Dean of being like wanting to be the peacekeeper, which is pretty common for an oldest child. He's a
referee. So. Like, he is 100% trying to be the referee with both of them because he loves them both, and obviously they both have very complicated relationships. Both of, like, his relationships with both Sam and his dad, but then he also doesn't want to watch them fight because he's had to live that for a lot of his life.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just, he's happy to see Dad again, and he's happy to have Sam there and his dad as well. And so they, Sam and John get into it. Dean kind of tries to keep them.
Also, I realized how tall everybody is in this scene. I was like, wow, everyone's really tall.
Yeah. If you didn't, I mean, we've already established
that Jared Padalecki is basically.
But they're all quite tall men.
Yeah, they're all tall men. And it's very funny for me. Because I'm just like, Jesus, everyone's really tall. Like, everyone's really tall in this scene.
Yeah. So, I mean, and John is not being particularly helpful. He's not responding in a way that is particularly good or particularly beneficial to resolving this. Like, he kind of just leaves it out there. Dean is trying to referee, and I can't remember if it's this fight or a later fight where, Sam and John kind of like walk off from each other, and then John has a dig at Dean and says like, you need to detail this car, you need to clean this car. I wouldn't have given it to you if I thought you weren't going to keep it clean. And that to me is like the darkest bit, which is that like he's taking his anger out, that he doesn't want to keep taking out on Sam because they're such similar people that it's not giving him any satisfaction, basically.
Yeah.
And so he takes it out on Dean instead. Like,
it's very vindictive. It's very pointed. And I was like, oh, John, not a good look.
No.
Really, don't.
No.
And Dean, because as we've established many a time, he does wear his, like, yes, he can turn his emotion off like a tap, but he wears, especially for his dad, that little pride of heart is for his dad. Hearing that would have broken him, and
he knows it. And I think that's what, like,
it's the conditioning, because he knows he's conditioned Dean to a point, like, he's made him submissive to him. And so when he barks at him, he knows he gets the instant gratification because he gets the reaction he was looking for from Sam.
Yeah.
And Sam's just like, I'm like you. I'm not going to fuck with this noise.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think we said maybe in Nightmare that we're not letting John off the hook when we were like, oh, it could have been so much worse. Their childhood could have been so much worse. We're like, we're not letting John off the hook. And again, like, I think we talked about this in Something Wicked, that, for a lot of people, they find this relationship really challenging and really tough to deal with. And I definitely don't want to, like, discount anybody's experience if they see themselves in these relationships, because I can't imagine, like, how that might make you feel. But I guess at the same time, the reality of it is what grounds us in the real world.
Yeah.
Like, I think I was saying in Something Wicked, like, they didn't go to, like, Hunter Academy when they were kids.
No,
and, like,
it wasn't like a
it was a dark, sad, horrible experience.
It comes from a place of hurt. This grew from a place of hurt. It didn't grow, like, if the demon didn't do anything to Mary, we would not be here.
Yeah.
We would not be having a podcast. There would not be a show.
Yeah.
It came from a place that unfortunately started with trauma.
Yeah.
And it's generational trauma.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, situational trauma. There's a lot of trauma is a big thing. Like, it's a big old trauma fest.
And I'm not saying necessarily that, I guess we'll talk about it over the next 15 seasons, whether or not Supernatural handles it well.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate
the complications,
the complexity of it, and the fact that it is rooted in the reality of the situation, and it's not idealized, and it's not it's not that and we went off and we had adventures with our dad and that was our childhood, which so easily could have been that, where it was like idealized and like, oh, we had the coolest childhood because we were fighting things. It's like, no, that fucks kids up. That fucks parents up, to lose the person that you love and to lose that person. And you can handle it in a healthy way, and John didn't choose that, and these are the consequences, and those are played out fully in this show.
100%. And they could have also turned the show in a sense of, well, Dean and Dad get along so well, and it's Sam being a child, because Sam, but we've dealt with our shit, Sam still hasn't. They've all had their own traumas, they've all had their own conditioning, and it does come to a head when it does, because everyone has had their own conditioning to a certain degree. And like you said, there's complexity, there's layers, there's trauma, everyone has gone through their own journey as such. And you also throw in personalities. And I think this again comes down to writing. They're building characters. They're really building the foundations. They're building everything up. They're making them they're all different people, even though they're all family, and that is what family is essentially. You're not going to have the cookie cutter family where it's like perfect mum, perfect dad, perfect child. That doesn't happen. And I like that they've done this. And again, you empathize with John for what he's gone through, losing the love of your life so violently, so young, blah blah blah. But at the same time, you don't let him off the hook and go, hang on. You can't treat your kids like this. You could have done better.
You empathize with Dean, because Dean is this kind of like, he wants so much to please his dad, and his dad knows how to twist that knife. You empathize with Sam, who just wants to be heard, and just like, you empathize for all of them in this terrible situation. And I also want to say, like, the writing is really good. Eric Kripke having this broad strokes idea is incredible, but giving props to Jared Jensen and Jeffrey, because 3 J's. J3. I didn't sorry guys, that's such a revelation to me, and it's probably a revelation to exactly none of you. That they're all such good actors that they elevate this show to be something else. And we'll talk about this again over the next 15 series. That this show, it shouldn't be as good as it is. It shouldn't be what it is. It shouldn't be as nuanced as it is.
For the CW network, shade.
Some shade.
Some shade, not all shade. But I also love that they also, with all of this darkness and trauma and all the conditioning, they haven't also romanticized it.
Yes.
Because there is a lot of shows out there, Gossip Girl, that definitely do that. And then, yes, I whispered because...
This is a secret, guys.
This is secret. I love that they haven't done that. And they've made it very clear that these are people gone through some things, and it's not cool to be treating your kid like a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I think as well, again, the actors elevate what could be romanticized dialogue. So it's the whole thing altogether that elevates this above what. And again, this is no shade to Eric Kripke. Like, obviously he has shown that he has a lot of talent and skill as a showrunner. And has a lot of thoughts about the stories he wants to tell. I just mean in terms of in the confines of a network television show in the early 2000s, Gossip Girl, there was a lot of stuff that meant that they might not have been able to do what they've done. So
I acknowledge that there's been some shows out there that have done similar, and they're on the same network, where it's romanticized bad behavior. Or very, very illegal behavior. Not that this is illegal, but just shitty behavior to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, that was such a tangent, guys. We're meant to be we're a comedy podcast, but
we got deep in this one mainly because it is such a good scene. It's such a good. It's good to. It's character building essentially, not for them, but it's good for us as a viewer. They're not just as you said, the Hardy Boys fighting crime, fighting around the world. They're not doing that. They're going in. They're dealing with some baggage. The baggage is the size of the Titanic. Which is fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, did not mean to go on the tangent, but I'm glad we've had that discussion.
Yeah, well, let's get back into
the show.
Let's get back into a little bit more of the comedy,
the fun stuff.
The comedy that we allege that we are.
Yes,
because let's talk about Cowboy Vampires.
This is
so they're back in their lair.
God, yes.
And this is maybe a little in a barn. This might be unique to the south of the Australian experience, but I did think because they sleep and live in this barn, I was like, in summer, that would be you would be sweaty 100%
You're meant to
of the
sleep in
time.
a day, and you're meant to in a barn that's dirt on the ground,
Yeah.
holes in
No
it,
insulation.
no insulation. It's essentially just wood shack.
Mm-hmm.
In hammock.
In a hammock or in a bed. The main couple get a
The
bed.
main couple, which is Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale.
Knockoff.
Not Kate Beckinsale and hot vampire guy.
I believe he's like an original. He's meant to be some kind of like first generation. Like he's like first iPhone. I don't know. It was very unclear.
Yes.
Very unclear again.
Hot generic vampire boy.
Hot generic vampire who is also one of the OG vampires.
Yeah, he's been around for hundreds of years sort of vibe.
But I do love, it would be too hot, but also the layering, because they're cowboy vampires.
Cowboy vampires.
There's a lot of a lot of ripped shirts from the sleeves.
Yeah.
A lot of denim jackets.
Yeah.
But then also the girls, because I don't know what temperature is there, because we've got men who look like they're really rugged up, and then you got girls wearing basically jean belts.
But yeah, basically, speaking of Coyote Ugly, fully Coyote Ugly.
Yeah.
Coyote dancing even.
Yeah.
Like tiny little, jean belt
skirts,
crop top, wearing a cowboy hat, dancing to cowboy music that only she can
wearing
hear.
double singlet.
Yeah.
Like a white and a coloured singlet on top of each other.
Yeah.
So is it hot? Is it cold? I don't know.
But they are, in fact, cowboy vampires.
Oh my God. So many straw hats.
And they've got...
Their cars are like 70s. Like,
yeah.
I was waiting for someone
Cool
to get
cars.
like White Snake video on top of on a hood of a car.
Well, I mean, my next note is vampires are always a little bit rapey. So we've got the couple that we've seen with the -10 chemistry. They're tied up. The Kate is there, and then hot generic vampire. I should find out what his name is.
Look, I was gonna say Luther. I'm like, no, it's not that.
It is Luther.
Hey!
10 out of 10.
Hey! I was like, I feel like it's Luther. And I'm like, no, that can't be right. Fuck me. That is, everyone needs to drink every alcohol thing they have, because that never happens.
Now I know. Kat never remembers anything
No.
from the show.
Even with my notes. Because they basically, from what we can tell, is they don't feed on the road. They take them back to the nest.
Yeah.
They bring they bring the gathering, which is the children, like the children, the people they've taken.
They bring the nest back together.
Yeah, they bring the nest together, and then they feed on what people have brought to the nest.
Yeah, so they feed on the people,
and
they can feed on them for weeks and weeks and weeks. Is what we find out.
Yes.
So Luther comes back. Kate jumps on him. They get sexy because they're vampires, and this is what vampires
and apparently they mate for life. Which I'm like, well, how old is she?
Yeah,
because if you're OG,
I don't think she's that old. I feel like she's newer.
Yeah, she's like, he definitely traded the model in. Let's just say, like, he traded a few. Because if he's like OG from when vampire, like from. We don't know if it's Dawn of Time.
Yeah, all we hear is that like hundreds of... Oh, no, actually, because I think they say the gun was made around the time he became a vampire. So like 1800s.
Because what's happened is they've brought back the food back, being the couple, the no chemistry couple. And they've also brought back spoilings from Daniel's house, like, which is money and some things. And then they found the cult. And Luther is not happy. No. Because he knows of Elkins.
Yes, he knows Elkins is a real hunter, and he's like, she's like, oh, like, I wanted to get revenge for you. And he says revenge isn't worth much if you end up dead.
Yeah.
But he does recognize that the gun is important.
Yeah.
And so he sort of keeps the gun, and he's like, well, I've got you presents as well, which is the couple, which
is gross.
Yeah,
it's gross. Like, these are not in my mind, these are not sexy vampires. These are... I need to go bathe in some bleach, because I do not...
I just like... this is such a early 2000s thing of, like, vampires are so sexy. Like, because Buffy takes...
It's really aggressive.
Yeah, but this is what Underworld is as well. Underworld really is just vampires are so sexy.
I'll go home like, Joel, you want to watch Underworld? And of course he will, because Kate Beckinsale is...
In pleather, yeah.
Is basically a goddess.
She is. She's
stunning. So of course he'll be like, I'm down. And I'll probably sit there and just laugh the entire way through.
I mean, I've seen all of the Underworld films multiple times. They are pretty great in that.
Yeah, look, I know what I'm going in for. Going in with a clearly...
They are definitely high camp, and it's added to by the fact that you have Kate Beckinsale and you have like Bill Nye's in a couple of them.
That's right. Oh
So yeah,
Yeah,
they're
look.
pretty fun. So later that night, they're
Partying / awkward dancing. It
well, but
reminded me of
like
The
yeah, there's
Sims.
some of them are kind of coyote ugly dancing, but Kate and Luther are just fucking.
Yeah,
like
it's implied.
it's implied. There's a lot. It's really horny, and I do appreciate that Mystery Woman is grossed out enough by it to look really awkward and uncomfortable to
'Cause
be
that's
like,
correct. But a lot of them do look like they're dancing like Sims in the game.
yeah,
It looks very awkward. Like you just put these people in a room
Yeah.
and they just go, Emma dance, and that's
Yeah.
what they're doing. But yeah, I like that she's looking like she's revolted by this.
she's just like, but also so uncomfortable, which is
Yeah.
exactly what you would be. The captive girl,
Mhm.
the captive boy has already been consumed.
Yeah.
And
We don't see it, but we
yeah.
are under the. She's alone, and they're mocking her a little bit, going ha 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 ha.
Yeah, and then they come up and they're like, "Do you want to join in?" Which gross,
Ew.
gross.
Nope.
And they sort of force feed her alcohol.
I mean,
Also gross.
yeah, I mean,
That's not.
that's Cowboy Vampires for you.
That's
apparently.
Cowboy Vampires. Consent is not important.
Nope.
The implication, I guess, again, they don't do a ton of explanation for a lot of the stuff that happens in this episode because I guess the implication is vampire law. You don't need to have vampire law explained to you the way you do with Wendigo. And so he cuts open Kate's wrist.
Oh, wrist, that's right, yeah.
But yeah, the implication, of course, is that they're turning her into a vampire.
Yeah.
Captive girl.
Yeah, she's drinking the infected blood.
Yeah, she's drinking vampire blood. And again, like I said, I don't think they really explain it because I think they're like, people know what's
People
going
know how a vampire's made.
Yeah, people know how this works. So Sam, John, and Dean go to attack the nest.
Yep.
They notice that Luther is sensitive to light, but he doesn't burn in the light. They're just sensitive to it.
And that, John's explaining the law. He does say, he's like, look, you'll notice that they won't burn up, like, they won't go into ash.
Yeah.
And they're sort of watching, they're sort of scouting out the territory. They've gone to the nest in the day just to get the whereabouts and the findings and work out their next plan of attack because John doesn't want them to go in there with them. He wants the boys to stay out.
Yeah, so they decide to go in and try and get the cult back. They're getting ready, and again we get this little thing of like John belittling Dean because they've got their two sort of weapon stores
Arsenal,
out,
storage,
and of course like it is a bit of like dick measuring that they open the Impala and it's like this kind of very retro like manual thing, and then John presses a button and it's this like
very Men in Black style,
like fancy weapons
very
thing.
some big dick energy, but not in a good way.
Not in a good way. And Dean is like, "Oh, Dad, do you need a machete?" And John gets out this massive machete. He's like, no, I'm good.
And it's massive, by the way.
And it's all like, it's all to belittle Dean, and it's all to make him feel a little bit bad. He's still taking his anger. And I just hate it.
Yeah, it's very passive. It's very, it's a condition. It's very conditioning of just, I'm still better than you.
Yeah.
And I'm still mad at your brother, but I'm going to take it out on you. It's just a lot.
It's like, and you can take it because you're the oldest. And I, sorry guys, this is so not a comedy podcast now, but one of the most interesting things that I've sort of learned and sort of, been told in my own experience with processing stuff is that, of course, your family pushes your buttons. They're the ones that invented them.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Right?
Ooh.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
Well, that's a. Oh
yes.
That's
sorry,
a good
guys.
wine. I need to like swirl that around for a bit, get the sniffing.
Yeah.
I need to get all the senses. Oh yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that is. Good night. Good night. I'm gonna go to bed now. I'm good.
I need to go somewhere and just quietly process for a while.
Yeah, I need to go process the fact that that is a very good statement, and it's very. And now you've said that. We don't need to talk about the rest about John because that. Yep. John has. He's forged these buttons and he knows how to then. Slam him back down into place.
Yep. So they go in to attack the nest because daylight is a better time to attack the nest. They find a bunch of sort of captive people that they're obviously feeding on that they haven't necessarily turned. They also see mystery captive woman. And they're all, they're almost there. They almost get the cult. But obviously Sam hasn't realized what's happened to captive girl. So he is like trying to untie her, and he's
Yep.
like, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." Standard Sam, and
Yep.
she starts to scream, and it's this unworldly scream because
Oh,
she, of
yeah.
course, is now a vampire. This wakes up Kate.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of Kathleen's and Cats and
I know,
Kath
and it's
in the first season
I
of
know,
this show.
and it's
I
I feel very seen. I'm very grateful because as someone who has a old person name,
yeah.
it's very nice to hear Kat, Kathleen, Catherine, Kate. I'm
Kate.
like, oh.
And they wake up in what I can, because like I said, this barn, if it's at all summertime, it's got to be the hottest place on the planet.
Oh god,
and
yeah.
in a bed, you would be sweating. So they
But
get
they're in hammocks as well.
yeah.
Ugh.
So they wake up and they obviously run out and
Yep.
they run away basically. Run
Yep.
away, run away, run away, run away.
Yeah, it's very much.
And
then I love how they get out and they're like, oh, got away from them, and they're like, Dad.
yeah, and so John comes out as well, and he's like, they're going to attack us now, but they won't attack us till night. Once you
they'll
get
have
a scent,
for life.
For life. So we need to go to a funeral home.
When Sam and Dean are doing whatever they're trying to get rid of the food to get them like untie people, let people out. John is going into the bedroom of Luther and Kate to get the colt because the colt's on the side of the bed. And of course the banshee scream of the new victim, or the newest member of the vampire nest, definitely startles them. So luckily we get out, and then so we now go do some cool things that I have been waiting for such a long time.
Excellent. Oh, right. Yes. I'm like, so Dean is at a funeral home. Sam's kind of pacing, like he's like, I should go. Like this is taking ages.
Yeah.
We don't really know what he's looking for at the funeral home yet. We haven't found that out.
Yep.
And John's like, no, you should chill out. And sort of John and Sam have this conversation about what happened and about their relationship. And, I'm just going to read basically what John says verbatim because it's much easier than me trying to summarize. He's like, you've got to understand something. After your mother passed, all I saw was evil everywhere, and all I cared about was keeping you boys alive. I wanted you prepared, ready, except somewhere along the line, I stopped being your father and I started being your drill sergeant. So when you said that you wanted to go away to school, all I could think my only thought was that you were going to be alone, vulnerable. Sammy, it never occurred to me that that was what you wanted. I just couldn't accept the fact that you and me were just different. And, like, I think that's true and not true. Like, John and Sam are very, very similar personality-wise.
Very similar.
But they obviously have different motivations. And, he says originally he had put away a college fund for Sam and for Dean.
Yeah.
And that, they have this really deep and meaningful conversation. And then at the end, Sam's like, well, what happened to that fund? And he's like, spent it on ammo. And they both kind of laugh.
And it was good. It was like a nice, like, wholesome.
Yeah, it was a good kind of release of the emotions. Again, I'm still not really letting John off the hook because I don't think that really it didn't, it doesn't resolve everything in the way that we would like in the way that it would have in a lesser show.
In a lesser show, definitely.
It would have been like, great, that's fixing it.
Yeah, it would have done the thing I like when TV shows wrap everything in a nice bow and package. It definitely is a Band-Aid on a big scar.
Yeah.
It's still in not much, but it's there.
Yeah, exactly. And so Dean comes back and reveals that he went to get Dead Man's blood, which is something that doesn't kill vampires, but it is poisonous to them. It makes them, like, pass out, basically.
Yeah. And that's why I've been enjoying it. I'm like, come on, I've been wanting to talk about it. Only because I'm just like, it's such a weird thing to do. And it's like getting someone's dead man's blood and that's what... It's such a clever way. It's like so cool. Because obviously it's like, well, they're dead. The blood has basically got no life in it. I just love it. I know.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I like it.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And again, I really love this kind of more complex lore building of like, this is how you hunt and kill vampires.
Definitely.
This is what vampires do. Like, it does set up a bit more of the world that they live in, which I agree. I think that's really, really cool. They decide to capture Kate because John obviously had seen them in the bedroom and realized like they mate for life, and so he will come for her over everything, and that is how they'll get the cult.
Yeah.
So they set this trap up. Unfortunately, Dean is the bait for the trap.
I know, it's very weird.
And I guess we'll talk about it. The idea of Dean kind of being sometimes portrayed as the like young ingenue. You know, he's been put in that
Yeah.
position of the like young sexy ingenue role that is sometimes a feminine or more traditionally a feminine role.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it because I have one other really specific point in mind where he's definitely given the position of the young ingenue over the woman that's in the scene, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, we'll put a pin in this. We'll put a pin in Dean's physicality being used as a weapon. Because obviously, we've talked about this. Jensen Ackles is possibly one of the prettiest men that's ever lived, ever.
Yes.
He's so pretty.
Oh, yeah, he's gorgeous.
He's objectively gorgeous.
Oh, like I said, I've been with you on the whole, he's a very attractive man.
Yeah.
Just not a man I would go, maybe it's intimidation, I don't know. But I would never go down that path.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So he is used as a lure for Kate. I guess their relationship with Luther isn't exclusive, ? And then they shoot arrows into her to poison her with the dead man's blood.
And then obviously this is where we get that lovely scene where there's another vampire, nondescript vampire tube is also shot, and we see the kill.
Yeah.
We see them, which is very gruesome. Like you don't see the head roll or anything, but you definitely get the blood spray.
Yeah, and years later, because as Kat said, this is sort of setting up the idea that maybe we're going to see these monsters again, and I don't think it's a huge reveal to say that we do come across vampires again. But years later, there was, I don't know if it was an interview or what with Jensen, and they were talking about how they would set those scenes up and how technically complex it is to film someone getting beheaded and make it look good, because it's like all about repeating motions with the person there, with the person not there, with just a fake head that they would drop to like get all of it together. So it was really interesting to sort of hear about how boring and technical it is to create something that looks really cool and exciting in the real world or in the world of like the supernatural. So I thought that was really cool. And we get this kind of final standoff with John, because he's like, this is the plan. Now we have Kate. You know what to do. We don't really hear what the plan is because we sort of see it unfold. And once it's done, you get out of here. You get out of this place. You know, we go our separate ways again. And it's really interesting. Sam obviously isn't happy. He wants to know more. He wants to know Sam what's going on. And Dean takes Sam's side and stands up to John. And I like that.
Yeah, because he's finally stepping out of the control. I think because he's been around Sam long enough now to get he's borrowed some of Sam's moxie to stand up to Dad and go, no.
Yeah. And I think as well, like, he's spent all this time with Sam and realized what a good team they are and what benefits that they have. And yeah, I really like kids. They're not kids.
They're not kids. And you know, it's interesting. Like Sam and Dean have gone through this training with unintentional training from John, and John needs to start realizing that they're not just cheap, throwaway. They can just fill in. They're not temporary teacher kind of thing. They're not temporary killers or hunters, I should say.
Yeah,
they're not just like the B grade.
Yeah,
he's raised them well in the hunting world, in the hunting standards. They know what they're dealing with. They are very good at what they do because they're still here and alive.
Yes.
So I feel like it's like Dean's like, no, we know our worth.
Yeah, exactly. But John's kind of like, I don't care. This is the plan. So John is driving along. He's got Kate in the car. He knows that the vampires are going to be able to smell her and come and find her. And he's going to use that to swap the cult, which he's kind of organizing. In the meantime, while they all leave, Sam and Dean go and attack the nest, kill the vampires that are left, and free the captives. So free the remaining people who haven't been turned into vampires. They, after this, are meant to leave. Like, that's what all they're meant to do, and then they're meant to go. Things don't kind of go according to plan with John. He has Kate. He almost has the cult, but Kate, the dead man's blood has worn off. And so she starts to attack John. It's kind of breaks down a little. Sam and Dean have ignored his orders, and they come and they use crossbows to take these vampires out, like the dead man's blood. This kind of really good kind of fight scene with
In the
all
middle
of
of the
them.
road.
In the middle of a kind of a country road, I guess,
Yeah.
breaks out. It's a really cool fight scene. It's really well done. It's
Yep.
really cool to see kind of a lot of like
Very West Side Story-ish, like sides of like, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's very good. It's well done.
It's a very good fight scene, and at the end, Luther has Sam.
Yep.
And John shoots Luther with the Colt. And we see this Colt kill a vampire. And it's so well done. And
it's so well done.
It's really, again, they're setting this mythology up about this Colt in such a good way. Like this whole episode is clearly leading into this moment where Luther gets shot and the Colt kills him, and you see how that happens and physically what occurs.
Yeah, it's good.
And it really kind of gives you that sense of like, oh, this can kill anything.
Yeah, one of my notes is like, oh, you know, the Colt actually works.
Yeah.
It's not just a gun, it's doing a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so the remaining vampires run away.
Right. Yeah, run away. Yeah.
And Sam, Dean, and John are left with the Colt. And John very reluctantly admits that Sam and Dean are actually better with him fighting together than off safe, allegedly doing their own thing.
Yeah, just doing random monster of the week.
And they're leading now to find the demon and kill the demon. That's together. And that's we're now leading into kind of the final 2 episodes, which are going to be about that hunt for the demon. But that's the end of the episode.
Really good episode.
I really like this episode. I love all the lore that it sets up. I love the introduction of the Colt.
Yep.
As this kind of magical weapon, because it's never explained why the Colt can kill anything. Like what's special about it, what's magical about it. They don't bother. It's a MacGuffin, which I kind of enjoy when they aren't trying. They don't even try. They're not like, oh yeah, and then a witch blessed it. It's like, oh my God, guys. They're just like, it's just magic, and we're not going to explain further, and we shan't explain further.
They give you enough to give, like, for you to taste.
Yeah, they give you enough to sense, like, because they're like, oh, Halley's Comet's overhead, and like this other, the Battle of the Alamo's happening. Like, there's something in the air that night, sort of thing.
There's some energies.
But we're not going to talk about what he actually does or why.
Nope. And that's great.
Yeah, and I you know, sometimes it's nice that
the air of mystery,
when they don't put too much exposition in and they don't exposition dump you to try and explain everything if it doesn't need to happen. And it's, you know, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
Head. Like, you can sense, again, they give you a bit of crumbs and you're like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So we're now staring down the barrel of the last 2 episodes of the season.
See what you did there.
And yeah, we're going to take a little break after season 1 before we start season 2. So we'll be taking a little break for a couple. It won't be too long for you guys. It'll just be a little bit longer for us in terms of
real world. In the
real world.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll give you an official date when we know, but it'll probably be mid to late October. So Ookie Spooky season is when we'll be back for.
I mean, unlike Northern Hemisphere, we'll be heading into sweatbag territory.
Yeah, so we won't. It's not as fun to dress up in elaborate costumes when
it's not
really hot, but it's still fun to say season 2 will start in October at some point before Halloween. We'll start
All Hallow Eve.
We'll start season 2. But yeah, we've got the final 2 episodes.
We sure do.
To talk about. I can't believe we're almost at the end of the season.
It feels like I'm still like in the at the beginning.
Yeah, and
we're nearly done.
We're almost at the end. Which is really cool and really exciting. So, as always, you can find us on social media. We have been a little quiet on social media as of late, but I guess again. Do you know what? Let's just do the reveal now. Yeah, so I guess I just want to say at the end of this episode, I guess if you're still listening, if you didn't listen,
jokes on you.
Jokes on you. I do want to apologize that it has been a little uneven, we've missed a couple of weeks. We haven't been as consistent on social media.
Been a little bit disjointed.
Little bit disjointed. And the reason for that, drum roll, is that I have been working on a little project of my own.
T-shirt hats.
Which is a human child.
That's right. You heard it here first.
So I'm currently, as of when we're recording this, it will be later by the time this episode comes out, but I'm in my 2nd trimester with a small Sam, Dean, Mary, John, who knows?
Yep. Maybe a cult. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
It's definitely a baby.
It's definitely a baby.
It's definitely a baby.
If you followed my track, don't understand babies. So I've been very excited, but yes, there's been a reason.
Yeah, and the reason is that I spent 2 months feeling like I was going to die.
It doesn't mean that Meghann's leaving me because she is everything in this podcast. I am the talent. Flicks hair.
Yeah, she's the talent.
I'm talent.
I'm the behind the scenes magic. But yeah, that's why it's been a little inconsistent. Is that I spent 2 months kind of semi incapable of doing anything, even edit a podcast.
I am talent. I have been supporting my podcast co-host, but more so. So next season we're going to start giving me some responsibilities.
Yes.
I feel so
So I know at the moment I'm sort of all of our social media, but next season Kat will start taking over our Instagram.
Not Twitter. So I will take over some creative stuff on the Instagrams.
So season 2 will be starting in October. I'm due in February, so we hopefully will get it all done so that we finish in February. And then we will take a little bit of a longer break between season 2 and season 3.
We'll still do some social media stuff.
Yeah, we won't disappear completely.
We'll obviously be doing little teasers because got to keep the the interest of the waters of Supernatural. But we'll take a bit of a break when Meghann and her new little hunter that comes into the world. So there's obviously some bubble time for you guys, and then we'll start season 3, maybe with a little +1.
Yeah, probably not because that will be impossible to record.
Oh yeah,
we'll do after February when we wrap up season 2. We'll take a slightly longer maternity leave for me, and then we'll be back for season 3,
which is a banger season.
Yeah, so I think it definitely motivation to come back and do the seasons. But yeah, it's been hard to not
it really has
explain why things have become really uneven, and it's been tough for me as someone who's very good at meeting commitments to not be able to meet every commitment that I had in my life. It was just thankfully I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm feeling a lot more like I can handle things. Like there was definitely a few recordings where I was like, we need to start now or I'm going to be too tired and we're not going to be able to finish this episode.
There was an episode we recorded after work. I had work from home that day. It was fine. I was a little bit loopy from doing that, but Meghann was definitely like, Kat, come on. I'm going to fall asleep in 5 minutes. Let's get this done.
We need to get this done.
Shit.
So thank you for your patience if you're still listening at the end of this. But yeah, as always, we are on social media. Instagram is We Will Talk About It Pod. We're on Twitter at We Will Talk Pod. You can email us at wewilltalkaboutit@gmail.com. You can subscribe anywhere you find podcasts. And if you have the capacity to leave us a rating on iTunes, we really appreciate that. That's how people can find us.
Yep.
But in the meantime,
stay safe and let's hunt this thing together.
Woo!
Woo-hoo!